So, Greg, the other day I was out doing some yard work, just doing some gardening, and it was like 1,000 trumpets just blared in the sky at me, just this loud horn noise. I, of course, immediately went into the house to the 700 Club to see what was going on, but it seemed like everything was fine. So, nothing weird happening this week, right?
I mean, did Pat have an explanation for you when you called in?
No, it just seemed like everything was good. I just gave him $50 like he asked me to. It's really all I have in my bank, but no big deal. I got some Trump bucks coming. Who knows why anything happens, right?
I mean, this is the kind of sort of irrational alarmism I've come to expect from you. And it's only gotten worse in these troubling times as your sort of apocalyptic millenarianism grows. And I've got news for you, Brian. That loud buzzing in the air, you're not going to find anything to explain that in the Book of Revelation. But if you turn to another source of insight and prophecy, the New York Times, you might find an explanation. Blaine Washington, in his decades of beekeeping, Ted McFall had never seen anything like it. What he saw was a giant Asian murder hornet. I guess they're invading Washington. That was the cloud of pestilence that was at your house, Brian.
Yeah, pestilence, Greg. I certainly won't find that in Revelations. Anyways, I have room in my bunker, guys, if y'all are interested. Yeah. But Greg, could you maybe give us a little? I felt like they give a little description of what the murder hornets do. That is just, I feel like we can't let our listeners go without it.
Okay. Let's see. In Japan, the hornets kill up to 50 people a year.
I mean, look, I can tell you, like, they're large, they're scary, like, they rip off the heads of other bees. Like, no, thank you. No.
Yeah. I believe in the article it has this hilarious thing about how their, mandibles or whatever are shaped like blades, and they literally decapitate the bees as they just, like, decimate the hive.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely not end of the world shit, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
No, I mean, why worry?
Exactly.
Anyway, the real point of that story to me, the thing that comes through most, is like it's about the state and the sort of bee industries, local beekeepers' response with the state to like combat this invasive species that could run rampant and completely destroy all like bee colonies everywhere if it gets out of control. And like they describe like a sort of small, scrappy effort to set out a bunch of traps and stop this, impending invasion. And I'm just thinking, gosh, I have no faith in our state's ability to do that, to stop this from happening. Like, I feel like we're going to be, reading about this is a very similar article to that New York Times article we read last week about the intrepid doctor who was like, "Yep, I saw it coming," and then it was too late in reference to COVID-19, and like,
yeah,
and then that'll be treated like success, like technocratic success.
I mean, the bees are already like the honeybees; they're already in a tough space, like they do not
doing good.
This. And like we're already in a tough space. We do not need this either. Not looking forward to what's coming next.
Well, guys, all I can say is buy Honey Futures. Buy Honey Futures. That's your stockbroking tip of the week.
Get that cash.
Any honey I buy, I'm just going to eat. So.
Greg just getting mercilessly stung by both bees and killer hornets while he sticks his hand into the beehive to get that precious, precious honey.
It's in your life, the way they softly stare. It's in your fingertips, the way they curl your hair. It's in your smile, the light in which you make. You're saying so much more than words could say.
Welcome back to the Seattle Sucks podcast, the podcast about Seattle and the quarantine. God, we need Colin back, Greg. This
Yeah,
is
we really do.
exhausting. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so confused.
My best not to think about it. But we have a special guest.
We do. We have a very special guest.
We're to promote his new single and music video.
That's just climbing up the charts right now. Knocking Macklemore off. Knocking other embarrassing Seattle artists off the charts. And it's, I guess, Greg, I don't even know why we have to say it, but without further ado, Mario Brown is on the show today.
Hell yeah.
Listen to the body language. Hey, guys. What up?
Okay, you don't sound like Mario Brown. You sound like Cassidy, also known as Korn from the Better Left cast.
Hey, what's up,
how's it going,
guys?
Cassidy?
It is good. Just, stuck in the queue like y'all.
Yeah, right on. I stayed with Cassidy and Melissa in Iowa. Cassidy
Yes,
worked
we
on
did.
the Bernie campaign in Iowa, a great experience that she is very proud of and has no regrets about. And
I'm proud of my experience, but like there's definitely some things to unpack there. Yeah, that might be a different conversation. I don't know.
but
Hey, look, y'all, I
she
can't wait to get
is-
those results back from Iowa, all right?
Oh,
So I think
same.
anytime
Yeah.
now we're going to hear about what good you guys did there. As soon as those
But-
results come in.
Cassidy is, as a seasoned Washington State political and campaign hack,
Hey,
she is our Mario Brown correspondent. She's an expert on
me.
Mario Brown, on his music, his career, his influences, what direction he wants to take his next
Yeah.
album.
yeah.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about yet, just go to the description of this, click on the link, and enjoy. Because one of my
Enjoy the
favorite,
ride. Yeah.
yes, one of my favorite genre of things is the local political music video, and this it's not that really. It's not like about a candidate or some like some ideological weird like normie. It's not like conservatives rapping. No, it's a guy who just happens to be a local political hack who I guess he's considering running for office. Right? Is that real?
He is he has a website. Like I think that makes it official, right?
Hell yeah!
Yeah.
Yes, that fucking rules.
Internet official.
Yeah.
And he just did a David Brent, evidently. From looking, we're gonna have to ask, but from what it looks like, hopefully all of you have now paused this, gone, watched the video. You're back now. I mean, did he write the song? Did he pay someone to write it? Did he which family member or intern of his filmed that? Where did he find those women?
Where did he find those women? Thank you.
Seriously.
Well, maybe
I mean-
first we should paint a picture of this video. I mean, we have our hero. He's in the middle. The ladies can't stay off him.
Yeah, they're just they can't stay away from his belt, which one of them is just grabbing the whole time.
Can you blame them?
Tell
No.
us your impression. You saw this and what happened.
Oh,
When was
and
this?
so
And
for me too, and we'll get into the background, but I've known Mario for several years, and I've always known that there's some skeletons and weirdness, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, that's what we're dealing with. Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
very special.
I was talking to a friend who happens to be in the same circle with them, and they happen to just drop this music video, and knowing that he had plans to run for office, I just knew that I needed to save that music video for safekeeping, and I am so glad that I did.
Thank
because
God.
it was no longer on YouTube, but we still
Oh,
get to
weird.
enjoy it, so you're welcome.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna ask you more about the man himself, but what is your impression of the video?
It's so cringe. What is happening? I don't know how you go into this just being you know what? This is it. We are going to fucking own the game. This is what we're doing. And it's a mess, but I love it so much.
My favorite part of the video is the weird line it straddles as far as quality, where it's just bad enough. These could just be people that he knows that he's forcing to be in the video with him,
Yeah.
but it's just good enough that he also could have paid people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain. So the person who shared this music video with me, they were a recruit for the music video, and they were not in it. But he had showed up to like a Burnstorm event that Mario had been doing, and basically this was like the first time this kid had met Mario, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to be in a music video with me?" And he said no.
Always say no to that. Don't never say yes to that. Somebody you don't know.
These other stuff said yes. So here they are.
So wait, did you say you met him at a Bernie event?
Yes.
These Bernie bros have got to be stopped.
Seriously.
All right. I'm on the train now.
How is this?
Where's Deborah Messing at? I gotta apologize. Well, maybe we should dial back. So
Yeah.
let's get to the roots of who is Mario Brown, right? So he's this guy. He's in Snohomish, right? So it's probably Linwood or something.
Yeah, I think that he's like in.
Oh, this
like,
video has such Linwood energy. Oh my god.
Oh,
Dude,
totally right.
That, like that makes so much
crack.
sense that this fucking cringe emanated from the town the mall ate.
Yes.
That is like holy shit, man. I know that is probably it's probably like filmed in like the old Chuck E. Cheese.
Totally.
You know,
yeah.
like oh my god. But we gotta talk more about the video specifically. So it's like it's him. It took me like the second watch to realize like that he was like consciously trying to rip off Daft Punk because I didn't really because the song first of all you got to give him he kind of does have pipes.
But you do not have to give him that.
He's a musician. Like before he did politics, he was a quote unquote musician. Like I think that he was a lobbyist for like making sure that music was in schools and stuff like that. Like yeah.
Oh, he's that's such a Seattle guy thing.
Totally.
It's but so he's got like a gold robotic hand.
Yes.
He's wearing a mask, and then the song, like its vibe is sort of
it's creepy.
It's awful, but the vibe is he clearly once I saw the robotic gold hand, I was like, oh, he's like trying to do that Daft Punk single, which who sang that?
Pharrell.
Yeah. And
as we all desperately try to figure it out.
It has like this very like almost I mean like Tommy Wiseau level like refusal to like examine the self or like have any awareness of what you're doing or like it's a super self-serious thing in which in the video he's clearly like trying like he's behaving as if he's some kind of like potential sex symbol, which is
right
really an interesting thing for any human being to just do. Also, I should have thought to transcribe the lyrics, but they're deeply creepy. What I paid attention to. The thing of it is, it's like the refrain in the name of the song, right, is body language, but it's like the text of that is like something like to the effect of I told you I loved you and you said nothing, but I can tell because of body language.
In my heart, as I try to build the net, I say I love you, love you, love you, but you don't say a word. Somehow I know you feel the same, even when your words cannot explain. 'Cause ordinary words, it's a shame. Just listen to the body language.
And so, yeah, it's just deeply creepy and toxic. And I guess in spite of that, it made my day or something.
And I don't remember who brought this up earlier, but like if we're paying attention to body language, that gal was not feeling.
Oh my god, that is the fucking funniest thing. Everyone in that video, all the poor like
the recruit,
whoever was recruited and like or just like felt like they needed to do this favor or thought like it wouldn't be that bad and just didn't know what they were getting into.
Yeah.
Just clearly were not fucking into it. Like especially the main sort of subject of well, ironically, like it kind of fits the lyrics because it does read as like a woman who like spurned his advances and then he just won't fucking leave her alone.
Isn't into you, but like I can tell that you're right. Exactly. Yeah, it's so cringe and creepy, and just like knowing the not great person he is, it's even worse / better. I don't know, but yeah, it's a gift for sure.
Yeah, let's get into who he is then. So, okay, we got this guy in Linwood.
Well, and so here's the thing. So, yeah, going into his like background in 2016, like that was the first time I met Mario. Was also at a burn storm. It was a different one, but he was putting them on all over the state. And basically, he was representing himself as an employee of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and that was not the case. So, like, that's where weirdness starts to occur for sure.
Yeah.
But like, so that happened. And then later on, like a year or two later, there were some PDC complaints filed against him. And it was regarding some lists that he had sold to his clients, some of them being Bernie delegate lists. And him not being an actual employee of the campaign, he should not have had those lists. He should not have been selling those lists. And that was under this B&B Strategies that he does consulting with. So like that was like just, that's messiness, but like I wouldn't say that in itself like makes you a terrible person. Like it's not great, but like those were things we knew about. And then he ran to be the Snohomish County Democrats chair. And like, again, it was under the idea that like people thought that he had been a Bernie staffer when he was not. And like, so it was just like a lot of weirdness. The same group who pushed Mario was the same group who pushed Tina Podladowski and basically said like, hey, like I'm a Bernie supporter, you should vote for me. And then when they got in, it was like, they are not progressive. They're not Bernie supporters. Like, so like, again, weirdness, but like, does that make you like canceled, a terrible person? Not necessarily. But then like when he started working for Ari, I think that's when people really started to pay attention to him. I'm guessing that's when.
What, a Democrat? Working for
Yes.
Ari?
Yes.
A Washington State, suburban Seattle Democrat working for Ari Hoffman? Oh my gosh.
He was hanging around Bernie rallies apparently at some point.
Yeah, like putting on Bernie events, basically saying that like he was staff of the campaign when he was not, like misrepresenting, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, I was super new to politics. Like this was someone that I saw as like a leader in the progressive community. Like, and that's how a lot of people saw him because we didn't fucking know, he was misrepresenting himself. And so, yeah, he ran to be the chair of the Snohomish County Democrats. And yeah, like he, I wouldn't say that he did a terrible job, but like one thing that he did that I think is super funny is, so one thing that the Democrats do, a lot is they fundraise. Like that is their thing. They're all about that cash. And so one of the responsibilities of the chair is putting on like some annual fundraiser thing, whatever. Like normally it's not that big of a deal. Like maybe they'll get some local politician, whatever. But Mario fucking put on a party, dude. Like it was lit. He had Nina Turner. He had Tulsi Gabbard. He rented out a room at the Tulalip Casino and just had a huge ass fucking party. But the thing is like later on, come to find out, he spent like tens of thousands of dollars on this fucking party, and they made no money for the Democratic Party. And so
honestly, sounds like the Democrats.
Yeah, but like the fact that he used the Democrats' money to pay like Tulsi Gabbard and people like that, like the Democratic Party was not fucking happy. But we're all fucking like, hey, we got a sick party out of this, so like I don't really care.
Sometimes it pays to know a grifter,
Right, exactly. And so that's what he did. Like he threw this fucking sick party, got to rub elbows with like Nina Turner, and then he resigned his chair. Like
wow,
pretty close following that. So like. That's exactly what he did. He grifted the Snohomish County Democrats. He threw a sick party. Like, so again, he's burnt a lot of bridges with people up here. And then I think that's why he was forced to start moving towards like more terrible candidates like Ari Hoffman, because he proved himself to be a shitty person and like trusted with money, like all that good stuff.
So like, yeah, what brings him to do that? Like, is this is part of like his like consulting work?
Yeah, so he has a company called B&B Strategies, and B&B Strategies is the same. It's the same consulting firm I was talking about earlier that like he sold Bernie delegate lists that he did not own. So like there's always been some shadiness surrounding his stuff, but like who's not shady in politics, you know?
Well, if he's a political consultant, like the other term
Exactly.
for that is shady grifter,
Right.
You know? Like,
Yeah.
one of
So
the same.
yeah,
As
like
one of those,
going
you know that.
Yeah, of course I know that. And so like going onto Ari Hoffman's campaign, like people I think were, I don't know if shocked is necessarily right, because it's just like, oh, like, yeah, a grifter continuing his grift, you know? Like
Getting
if
a
you
paycheck
look
out of Ari Hoffman.
if you look at any of the literature that he did, like it was trash. It had misspellings all over it. Like he's not a good consultant, but like this was someone who was willing to pay him, you know?
Like, okay, like, but the like insane homeless like eradication Zionist literature had, you know, spelling mistakes. I mean, you know, we're kind of bearing the lead here, right? Like,
right. No, totally. And like, so what I'm saying is like for him, like he was willing to look past that bullshit just because he wanted to get paid. And it like, as that's
well, do
terrible.
We know that? And do we know that he's not also just like, do we know that he has any like, you know, ideological commitments one way or the other? I mean, if he's, you know, some grifter,
like honestly, I can't speak on anything like beyond that, but like what I'm saying too is like he misrepresented himself as a progressive, as a Bernie supporter.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
what I mean. Yeah,
is that necessarily the case? I don't know. Like, did he do it for money? Did he do it because he agrees with Ari's message? Like, to me, no matter what, it's fucked. And especially as someone who planned to run for office, like, what is you doing? You know?
Yeah. Okay. So wait, what is he running for?
So he's running for state senate in the 38th LD.
Where's the 38th?
I believe that's like Marysville, like North Snohomish County.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's a messy mess.
Some good parties up there, and you know,
right,
pull it out.
Yes.
So yeah, next time at another castle up there, I'm gonna karaoke his fucking track, you know. See if I kick his campaign off.
That would be amazing. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Hell yeah, I would go to that party.
Yeah, no, but the person that sent me this music video, again, like I kind of wanted to do some digging, because at this time we had been interviewing Ari for our podcast to see like, are you a troll? Are you fucking serious? Like, what is this? And so this friend of mine like straight up asked him like, what the fuck are you doing? And he said that Ari just wants to embarrass the council and he doesn't want to win. It was basically an entire like troll campaign, which like we all knew this, obviously. But to like hear that from the mouth of someone from the campaign, it's like, oh, very cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well,
so yeah, just a mess.
Yeah. But I think like one of the lessons here is that these kind of people are always around these kind of organizations, right?
Yeah.
The Democrats are always easy to get into because they don't actually build any sort of infrastructure in any way. Like, you know, the Republicans have, you know, the campus conservatives, the college Republicans, all that kind of stuff. They actually take that shit seriously. But the Democrats don't ever like build any infrastructure. So it's like perfect for grifters, just kind of like seep right on in. And sometimes
they show up. I mean, the Democrats are just so happy, so fucking delighted anywhere for anyone to show up at any kind of fucking meeting. That's the thing out in, I'm going to take a wild guess and say like Snohomish County Democrats does not draw huge crowds.
No, let alone like people under 40, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So like a handful,
very typical.
You know, a handful at meetings, a tiny handful of like retirees, and you know, it's easy enough to come in there, and you know, say, you know, just claim whatever is necessary. But this is the story of the entire Democratic Party. This is the story of Democratic electeds, you know, I mean, and this is the story of the Democratic Party locally, because, you know, and this guy, you know, there is a grift to be done here by calling yourself a progressive when you could really just believe fucking anything, which is like what most Democrats in the Washington state legislature are all about.
Right. And it's like, I don't care what you claim to represent. You know, you could probably go to his website and he's going to say that he supports Medicare for all and things like that. But like, if you're willing to take money from Ari Hoffman, I don't give a shit. I don't trust you. You're not going to represent us. Like, you're going to just go with whoever's going to give you that cash. So yeah, no, he's not.
Well, I mean, he's, you know, again, this type that, you know, Brian mentioned, you know, just weird careerist. I mean, they're all careerists, but then there's the weird creep careerists, and that's this guy.
Right.
I mean, and it's awesome, and I love that he exists. That music video, I mean, seriously, actually, you may not even have to follow a link. I think we should host it on our website because it's not available anywhere else, apparently, if it's down off YouTube. But Cassidy's got it, so we're going to get it, and we're going to make sure it's online for all of our friends out in Snoho to, you know, to spread it around, because the world has to see this beautiful work of art.
Spread,
yeah, actually,
not Corona, right, guys?
yeah, exactly. And like we believe in Mario's music career, and we want him to go with that. We want him to pursue that.
Yeah, let's go with that. Cool.
Yeah, like I said, he kind of can't sing.
Yeah, we need more bangers for sure.
It's a deeply creepy song. It's a absolutely chillingly cringe music video, and the fact that it's from someone running for office in Washington State just makes it that one of the most special delights that the internet can offer.
Such a delight.
Yeah, God, so great. So, Cassie, you gonna stick around and talk to us about eating nuclear waste for breakfast every morning growing up in Washington State?
Yes, that's the other thing that I'm an expert on, Mario Brown and the nuclears.
Cool.
Yeah. And, you know, because everything's going so well here on this side of the mountains, we decided this week that maybe we should take a little peek over the mountains. You know, we got up to the very tippy top of the pass, and we put our hand right up above our eyes to shield us from the sun. And we looked over and we saw what was going on. And I just thought, let me just throw out some highlights from this article we have about our beloved Hanford site, which is out by the Tri-Cities area in Eastern Washington, and that maybe we could get some responses from you guys. So after a deep look at infrastructure maintenance records at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation following a tunnel collapse 3 years ago, the General Accounting Office found upkeep has been spotty over the years. So we're beginning beginning already with a tunnel collapse that just makes you go, wait, what?
Well,
yeah, spotty.
Think about, like, this is supposed to be the site of a massive federal cleanup effort, right? This is the idea here is that there is an ongoing cleanup of the most like polluted, nuclear site in America. And,
Greg.
But instead, it's like, just upkeep is spotty.
Yeah, Greg. First off, it's not a site of a cleanup; it's a site of the cleanup. Hanford is actually considered to be the most toxic and polluted location in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah. Which, I'll throw out, a few stats here, just so, let you guys know if we need to panic or not.
Thank you.
So, Hanford's one of the U.S.'s oldest, sort of nuclear sites. Its first reactor was started in 1944 for the purpose of making a bomb. The last one was shut down in 1987. It had 9 total. And it has 177 underground tanks currently that are holding toxic material. They are storing 900,000 gallons of radioactive material. And they also have some sump sites. And by sump, I mean holes they dug and dumped things in.
Okay.
That's over this time period, they dumped about 440 billion with a B gallons of radioactive water waste into. Oh, Hanford's like 3 miles from the Columbia, too.
Tight. Cool.
Well, the site itself is on riverfront property, but the most radioactive stuff isn't necessarily right on the river, but I don't know.
Well, Greg, it actually has had several very serious leaks over the decades. And many hundred thousands of gallons of material have actually leaked into the Columbia. I couldn't find confirmation of this story, but there is a story that goes around that there was a Hanford worker back when it was still operational that was eating shellfish from the mouth of the Columbia right there on the Oregon-Washington border. And he went back to work the next day. He was on a little trip and he apparently ate a bunch of oysters, went back to work the next day and set off the the radioactivity detector when he walked into his work site.
Perfect.
But,
coming back to work. That's great. Yeah. But this is from, did we mention that this is from the Crosscut article?
This is from a Crosscut article. Yeah. Go to Crosscut. There's good stuff on Hanford. Yeah.
Well, so this new thing is, that they talk about in the Crosscut piece is a GOA study that was insisted upon by the Washington congressional delegation, Patty Murray and Maria Cantwell, after that tunnel collapse where, a place storing nuclear waste underground just fell apart. And yeah, the study, this is not shocking at all. Anyone, if you've lived in Washington State, you've probably known about this for a long time, but whatever cleanup there is, and there's some hilarious statistics in this article from the actual plan, the tri-party agreement between the Department of Energy, the EPA, and Washington State to clean up Hanford, and it has dates for final cleanup of various sites and buildings out for 100 years.
2076.
And it's okay. But that just tells you the speed at which this is happening is not even enough to keep up with the natural decay of man-made buildings. That's how they can't even clean this up fast enough before it is falling apart. So even just how bad the sort of the whole thing was always, as Brian described, just basically dumping endless radioactive waste into the ground was already a bad effort at containment. But what little effort there was is deteriorating faster than they're really even able to clean it up, which there's bigger things that go into this. We haven't really decided as a country what to do with this nuclear waste. For the most part, that is keeping them from really doing a lot of stuff, and they're mostly just finding ways to mitigate and continue to contain it there. But they're clearly barely even doing that. If some of this GOA report cited some of these sites haven't been checked for structural integrity for 20 years or something.
Well, and I agree with you, it's not shocking necessarily, but some of the things, the tidbits were shocking. So for example, one of the facilities, they said the extent to which they do those sort of check-ins is they just look down a flight of stairs.
Hold on, let me read that, because that's actually pretty funny.
I saw that, I was excuse me, what? Okay.
Yeah, so basically, this particular report was they looked at 18 facilities, and of the 18 facilities, they found 5 had zero maintenance and were in danger of collapse and things like that. Yeah, it turned out the 5 were also in the most toxic areas of Hanford.
Very cool.
But yeah, the one you're referencing is the 216Z9 crib, and let me just read the little description they had here. This is a big 20-foot deep trench of radioactive waste, including 106 pounds of plutonium. With a roof supported by concrete columns on top, inspections consist of looking at the top of the roof and peering down a staircase.
What?
That rules. That fucking
They literally just peek down a hole and they're like, "Yeah, looks good."
The thing is,
yeah, wrap it up.
Well, it's easy. It would be easy for someone to read that and go "Holy shit!" Well, what do you have to do? What are you asking these workers to do? Because this is very dangerous and difficult cleanup effort.
Totally.
But the thing is, you could do it safely with just enough funding. You could do it. Like we went to the fucking moon. You could clean this shit up with and take it at the pace that was necessary, with having everyone protected. Man. Build fucking robots to do it, for fuck's sake. I mean, we have the technology at this point.
Oh
okay?
no, Greg's on the robot kick now.
I'm just saying, like, the issue here is like anything else, like it's just austerity and not wanting to spend any money on this shit from the federal government. I mean, you can't. It's happening here in Washington State, but there's nothing the state can really do. It's a federal site, it's a federal problem, and the money required to actually clean this shit up would be fucking astronomical. So what you have instead is this bureaucratic effort that has like, these timetables that go out fucking 50 years, 100 years, that just mean nothing. And you get to say, well, this is going on, and you can cover it by saying like, yes, well, it's very dangerous, it's very difficult, it has to be done very carefully. But
they just keep pushing it off to the next person, the next, whoever, and like it just is never going to be taken care of. And I think that going through all this corona bullshit too just makes it even more apparent that like this will never be handled properly.
Ever.
I mean, exactly. Look at what we're dealing with now.
Exactly. Yeah, well, because if it is outside of the political imagination of our political class, even the Democrats in Congress, to like just spend the fucking money and like ramp up testing, they're just why would they clean this up? Just let it be there, let it keep polluting the Columbia River.
Well, Greg,
would
you like to hear a story?
Yeah, please.
Well, let me take you back to 1949. The U.S. was at war, a new kind of war, a Cold War. And the U.S. government wanted to know, can reconnaissance planes detect the site of a nuclear power plant that's creating plutonium for a bomb just by emissions? And that brings us to Project Green Run, where the Hanford plant just on their own as a little experiment released 12,000 curies of radioactive material into the air
to see if they could see it.
To see what would happen.
Camera.
Yeah, to see if they could see it. That release is around 400 times the size of the 3 Mile Island radioactivity release when 3 Mile Island melted out.
How's it compared to Chernobyl?
It's still smaller than Chernobyl, but they then did it. Yeah, but they then did it 7 more times between 1952 and 1973 that we know of.
Cool.
Holy shit, that fucking owns.
They then followed the medical records of people in the nearby area to see what would happen. We don't know what they found out about that.
Science. We haven't even said this yet, like what the Hanford site like really is and what it represents. I think, again, like a lot of people know this if you've lived in Washington or maybe you read this article, but Hanford is one of the 3 main Manhattan Project sites that was opened in the early part of the war to develop the nuclear bombs. And it's basically where virtually all of the nuclear material, the plutonium, it's a plutonium refinery. And basically all of the nuclear material, the plutonium, which is what almost all the U.S. nuclear arsenal uses, basically all came from Hanford over the course of like 50 years. So like all of our enormous number of nuclear weapons that could destroy the world several times over, it all came from Washington State, or was refined and turned into usable plutonium here. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's extremely cool. And sort of one of the interesting side stories of that is that we actually made 2 types of bombs for the Manhattan Project, right? So they had 2 ideas of how to make the bomb. and they decided to go at both of them simultaneously
to test them
at
out.
And at the same
It's Batman
time,
that comes from that's the plutonium bomb that comes from Hanford, and that was the second bomb dropped on Nagasaki.
Weird. We created 2 bombs. We dropped 2 bombs. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
just think about that. Just think about that for a minute.
I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
So Leslie Groves, who was in charge of the Manhattan Project, was becoming extremely concerned around 1945 that given the fact that they had a complete blank check to run up as big a budget as they possibly could want,
and had done so.
Keep this in mind for our future problem at Hanford.
Yeah.
He actually became really concerned because there's actually, nobody remembers them now, but there was these really famous trials after the Civil War about like war profiteers and stuff like that haunted the American psyche up until World War II.
Well, certainly in the arms industry.
Yeah, and Leslie Groves thought for sure that they were basically all going to jail. And he's like, they're basically going to say that we like stole money from the war front or whatever, and people died because we were like fucking around in the desert.
And it should be noted that Leslie Groves was an American Army general and a fucking psychotic freak.
Oh yeah,
like an absolute fucking like right up there, like Curtis LeMay level psychotic nut job. Maybe less.
And like another grifter, it sounds like, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, a grifter who realized his time might be up. So when it came time, when they finally had a weapon ready, he was very worried because everybody knew Japan was going to surrender, and he was very worried they're going to surrender before they had one ready. And once they had one ready, he immediately pushed to say, "Hey, we can't just drop one; we got to drop both because we have to, validate both projects.
We have to use the product."
Yeah, and it has to be used now. And he became, the most ardent supporter of dropping
major lobbying
bombs.
effort.
Yeah, and wouldn't you know it, there's about a dozen reasons why we dropped the bombs on Japan, none of which have anything to do with the war itself. But
literally, it's the
literally
only thing. It's the only reason we didn't bomb Japan was to end the war, or because they attacked us in 1941. Literally nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Although Groves was one of the people that intervened too when the Los Alamos Targeting Committee had floated the idea of dropping the bombs on an island off the coast of Japan and having Japanese observers. Yeah. He was one of the people that was like really against that because he said that you had to drop it on a population so they would know the effect. Otherwise, and this is key, it wouldn't be internationally understood. As they said at the time.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Greg, you say it like that.
Psychotic freak, but as a propaganda weapon.
Mm-hmm. Well, and my main point of bringing up this just wonderful story of Leslie Groves is that when they started creating this nuclear material, this fissile material in Hanford, it was a blank check. Do whatever you want. Spend as much as you want. Everybody was at the trough, GE in particular, but everybody was at the trough.
Hanford was built by DuPont.
Yeah. And then, well, they had multiple reactors. Some were built by DuPont and GE, but the thing
the first one, yeah, that's right. The B reactor was built by DuPont, but every big fucking defense contractor and big industrial company, everybody got fucking cash out of that.
So it was declared a Superfund site in the 1990s. I mean, it's one of the most, destroyed sites in the country. It's, again, roundly considered to be the most toxic site in all of the Western Hemisphere. And now, all of a sudden, we have to watch the checkbook. Yep. Interesting. Interesting how that works, all right? Isn't this always the case? Always. I mean,
yep.
It's just American politics in a nutshell, right?
And it's a choice. That's what's so frustrating is like if our politicians and our representation actually wanted to fucking make a difference and get this taken care of, they could, but they choose not to. And I mean, again, like we get, 2 choices or maybe like 3 people run for office, whatever. Like none of these people are proposing like doing anything bold or different. Like we just have to fucking deal with it. And like, I mean, I don't know how you guys look at it, but as a constituent, as like just someone who lives here, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do.
Well, I think it's a question of, even to the extent that our representatives, if we were to give like Murray and Cantwell credit for a minute of, you know, at least sounding tough on Hanford, like it's a question of where the real power is. And so it's like everything else, you can't, the Hanford cleanup, the absolutely devastating effects, the sort of murderous history of it all. It's not a single issue that you can fight, that you can advocate on. You can't just like, do activism to clean up Hanford. It's just not going to work. It's about power, and there was money to be made making that mess, and there's really none to be made cleaning it up.
Right.
Which, you know, could beg the question, right? Well, why not? Couldn't some company make a shitload of money cleaning it up? And the answer is no, because that's what the blank check part is about. You know, when you're making arms, and particularly the Manhattan Project and lots of other things, you know, it's like it's also like cost plus accounting. You know, you just like there's no one looking over your shoulder on efficiency. These projects can just go like out of control budget wise, and they just get approved. But that's not how, you know, there's just no scenario in our and that's a possibility that they can get away with. That sounds insane, but they always have arms contractors, you know. But there's nothing in our political imagination that would allow for that scenario to be for cleaning this up. Plus, you would have, because this is so fucking contaminated and that's an issue, it's, you know, no company can make any money on it. I mean, you couldn't get fucking, to do a real big job to put a bunch of people in there to protect them. You know, geez, the insurance alone would bankrupt. You couldn't even get insurance probably, you know?
Well, Greg, would you like to hear another story?
Yeah, please.
All right. Well, there is a plan for dealing with the waste at Hanford, and it's called creating glassification manufacturing facilities where they lock the radioactive material in this glass process. I'm not a fucking nerd. I don't know how any of this shit works, but apparently it's the way to go. And they decided to do this in the mid-aughts, and they allocated quite a bit of money for it. And private companies were perfectly happy to jump in, including one company, those of us who I guess none of us exist anymore who remember the Iraq War.
Was it Chihuly?
It was not Chihuly. It was our good friend Bechtel.
Oh, nice. Yeah, dude, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, and when there's money to be made and sniffed in the Defense Department budget, right, or the Energy Department budget, Bechtel will show up. Now, they did show up, and they did build something. And in 2010, in the process of building it, one Walt Tomasitis, I apologize for fucking your name up, an employee of a Bechtel subcontractor, pointed out that the plans that they had used to build this facility were flawed, that there was a risk of hydrogen gas explosions that could bend and burst pipes in the plant, spraying radioactive fluids, et cetera, all very bad. Pointed out that essentially the construction was flawed. Tomasitis' superiors told the Energy Department that the design problems actually had been fixed as of July 1st, 2010, over his protests, but in time for Bechtel to collect a $5 million bonus from the department. Years later, they actually figured out that the plant that Bechtel built was flawed, as Tomasitis had pointed out, and had to be torn down. And Bechtel presumably kept the money, and Tomasitis, let me get my glasses out, was fired for raising the alarm. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
so Greg,
you know,
there is money to be made.
Yeah, but there is grift to be grifted, but there's no money to be made actually doing anything.
Right.
Point, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're fucked. And yeah, I think that like this article, it's just, again, like whether it be fucking murderous hornets or like Hanford, COVID, like it's just piling on right now, man. Like it's rough.
The wages of the American Empire are coming due.
Yeah. Bernie would have won.
Bernie would have won.
Bernie will have won.
Well, I feel like on that positive note, maybe we should conclude this discussion. Cassidy, do you have anything that you would like to plug?
And then, of course, Better Left Cast. Everyone should tune in.
Yes, like obviously like, comment, and subscribe, you guys. I mean, I have the podcast. That's really about it right now because I'm unemployed and on the queue. So yeah, like check out the podcast.
Hell yeah.
Let
You
me
getting
ask you
those
a
Bernie
question.
bucks like me?
What'd you say?
You getting those Bernie bucks like me?
Those Bernie bucks, excuse me?
Yeah, the like extra unemployment cash, yo.
Oh, I mean, we're still figuring that out. Remember, like you've been giving me some tips, but we're getting there.
Fuck, that's right, dude. Oh man, yeah, I forgot you're having like an unemployment.
I filed with the state of Iowa, which was a
Ugh.
huge error in my judgment, and like I'm continuing to wait. So
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I hope it works out.
good. And
Well, if it makes you,
go ahead.
I was saying, if it makes you feel better, I filed with the state of Washington at the end of March,
Yeah.
and though they have claimed they have paid me, they have not. So,
Oh,
Fuck.
yeah, so
that
I'm
does
very
not sound good.
No.
So I'm very excited for this interaction that I'm going to get to have. They claim they paid me on this last Friday, by the way, from the third week of March. So that's where we're at in the state of Washington on unemployment.
And it's
Doing
just
badly.
Imagine if we just didn't have the means testing and just like fucking took care of our people in a global
Mhm.
pandemic. Jesus fucking Christ. Like,
Well, the Congress is going to come back, and you know at least the real hardline Republicans are already going like, what the quote from Lindsey Graham is like, more COVID unemployment, a further unemployment relief extension over his dead body, and I'm just
Cool.
thinking like the opposition to that, like the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, people who really didn't want to do that in the first place either, and had to be like cajoled into it by Bernie Sanders and other people who are, human beings who don't have $10,000 refrigerators.
God, yeah, it's really bad. And then I mean, like to dive into Iowa really quick, like it's so bad there. Their governor right now is basically telling people, like factory workers that are making $7 an hour, you have to go back to work and you are going to be kicked off of unemployment. They don't care that there's outbreaks at these meatpacking facilities. It's like they are just being forced to go back to work. And so yeah, it's not good.
Love people coughing and dying in my meat.
Love it.
Yeah. And I mean, even in the state of Washington, I mean, that's the plan, right? Is, we're going to open up the various jobs that low wage workers have to go to. And we're going to keep the stay at home work where it's at, which basically means if you have a professional class job, you get to live. If you don't,
Right.
that's what you get to do. You get to roll the motherfucking dice.
Well, and going back to Eastern Washington, like, I think a lot of us are under the misconception that maybe King County, Snohomish County, we have been hit the worst. But in reality, Yakima County has been hit the worst by COVID. And that is because almost 70% of their workers are essential employees. They're people of color.
Yep.
They're people who are making minimum wage. And so these people don't have paid sick leave. They don't have insurance. They don't have the protections, and they're getting fucking sick. It's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good talk, guys.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you
Well,
so
that's
much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Good talk
Thank
to
you,
you.
guys.
Yeah, and
hang in there.
in the Better Left podcast, it can be found on Spotify and I'm sure
All the
iTunes and all the
places.
things,
And
all
we're
the places. So,
we're on Twitter,
ahead.
Instagram, all that at Better Left Cast.
yeah, so everybody has free time. Go check it out. You're either unemployed or you're some professional class.
The way they softly stare, it's in your fingertips. The way they curl your hair, it's in your smile. The light in which you make, you're saying so much more than words can say. With every breath you take, and I know you feel the same, even when your words cannot explain. 'Cause ordinary words are put to shame. Just listen to the body language in my heart. As I try to build the nerve, I say I love you, love you, love you. But you don't say a word. Somehow I know you feel the same. Listen to the